Hey guys, Duchess Braids here and welcome back to my channel. So today we're doing 6 straight backs on my one of my daughter's close friends, and he asked me if I could do the 6 straight backs with the crossover method included. So we're starting off with his hair freshly washed and blown out. And as you can tell he has really beautiful long hair, and around the sides and back is shaved down. So of course we're going to start with the middle part because this style needs to be symmetrical, and so we're going to make sure the middle part is straight and lined up properly. And I like to double check by looking in the front to make sure. Then we're going to get that half of his hair out the way, and we're going to jump into the other side. So with this 6 braids, I stopped to ask a few questions. First of all, like, do you want the braids to be straight back, or you want it to curve a little bit? And he said he wanted it to curve from the front a little bit. So that's where I started to part. And then once I got to the back, I needed to decide, like, do you want the hair to come into a ponytail, or do you want it just falling straight in the back? And he said he wanted it to fall straight back and not kind of braid it into like a ponytail. He'll put it in a ponytail if he needs to. However, he wanted it to come down. So we're starting off with the Neat Braids braiding gel, and that's what we're going to be using today to accomplish this style. And so I'm going in, and of course, I'm going to coat the part, and then I'm going to go in with the Duchess Braids precision comb, and we're going to clean that up. And you guys, if you don't already have this precision comb in your arsenal, you definitely need it, because this is always going to get my parts clean and crisp. And the link for that will be in the description, and it's the link to my website. And what I love most about working with the precision comb is how sharp it is. It's definitely going to get all the little fine strands of hair and pull those out of your way, and makes for just an easy cleanup when you're braiding. So when I'm done with this section now, I'm going to go ahead and get the other half out of the way. I always like to pull that out of the way, of course, so it doesn't get mixed up. And then I'm going to go in and coat each side of this braid with the Neat Braids gel. And this is going to allow for a nice sleek braid. So I went in and I coated each side, and then I'm gonna go in and pull out his hair that is shorter, because you really don't want those little fine hairs in the way, especially when he goes to get it trimmed and cut down. You want to make sure that it's easier on the barber to get those hair shaved down and stuff. So I like to pull those out, and then I go in through the middle. And this is something that I do usually when I have a client with really thick hair. I like to coat the middle as well, because sometimes when you only coat the outside, the gel doesn't get into the inside. So when you're braiding, you have really like dry hair in the middle, and your stitches just does not come out how you want it to. So I like to coat the middle sometimes if I have a client with really, really thick hair that I know that the gel is not going to go into. So I started out real braiding his hair, and then I kind of jumped into the back, only because I think something happened with the camera. But you're gonna get some braiding parts in this video, so don't worry, I didn't mean to skip through this whole section of braiding. But as you can tell, I have started stitch braiding it. The stitches are looking real good and really clean and sleek, and that's exactly how we want it to be. All right, so we're just gonna braid the hair to the end, and once I'm done braiding, I'm gonna add some rubber bands to the end, because his hair is straight and it's a little bit of a looser curl. I don't want his braids to come out, so I'm gonna use this rubber band, which I love using this brand, because if y'all have ever used rubber bands, sometimes you might pick the wrong brand and the rubber bands pop on you. But this Annie's rubber band does not break so easily. So I always recommend that as a choice of rubber bands to use. So now I'm going to go in and split this half of the section in half as well. And I like to go back and forth to make sure that it is proportional with the other one next to it. So once I've done that, I go in again and I'm going to coat the scalp, because we want to clean this part up. And this is how you get really clean parts, guys. You go in with kind of like a pre-made part first, and then you go back in, you coat the scalp, and then you clean it up with your precision comb. And that's how you're going to get the neatest, nicest parts. And you're going to get some really, really good sections as well. And every time you see me lift the hair up, that's me kind of just checking to make sure like that section is equal to the other section. So it's like a really quick look to see like, okay, am I parting the sections properly? Are they proportional? You know, because you can really tell in a style like this if the braids are proportional or not. So you just want to take your time to do that. So because we're doing the crossover method, I'm going in halfway throughout this section and I'm going to part that in half, and I'm going to remove or braid out the other half that I'm not going to need in this moment. So I do a quick little braid. I can use a clip or anything, but sometimes clipping it off still gets in the way. So I like to kind of like braid it out the way, and that way I know like all the strands of that section is like tucked away. And so with this crossover method, you know, you're gonna start on one half of the section and then you're gonna jump over to the other half. And so that's why I parted in the center and I make sure those parts line up because I'm gonna end up going from one section to the other. So now I'm not gonna need this part here. So I'm gonna braid that out the way as well. And now you guys seen I've set up for the crossover method. And again, I'm going to coat each side of the hair and make sure you don't forget the back. I've forgotten to coat the back before because I was just so focused on the front. And once you start braiding, you really don't want to stop because you don't want the braids to come loose. So make sure you coat both parts that you're doing. So I start coating in the front and then I go to the other back sections because it's easy to forget and you don't want to forget that. And again, I part it in the middle and I coat it in the middle because he has really thick hair and I want to make sure that these stitches are shown, they're well pronounced, and all of his hair is like slicked down. I know a lot of people might have problems with using a lot of gel, and I get that, but sometimes if you want the results that you want, you kind of got to use the appropriate amount of gel. I know, like, when things look too much for me, like, because I do see sometimes where I feel like a braider might be using too much gel for me, but also someone could look at my braids and say she's using too much. So it just depends on the person and their preference. However, this is what works best for me. This is what I know is going to sleek the hair and make the style last longer. And I always ask to make sure like the client is not allergic to gel and just how they overall feel about using it. So that's a question that I like to ask people is, are you allergic to the gel? And sometimes a lot of people don't know, and they won't know until they go home and their scalp is itching or something like that. But if you've ever been to a braider, 9 times out of 10, they're going to use some type of addition to make sure that your hair is sleek down. So now that I've braided the front half of his head, I'm going to braid out just a little bit in order to reach the braid over into the next side. And once I feel like my braid is laid over onto the next side, that's when I start digging into that portion of hair and making my stitches on that side. So now when you're doing the crossover, your stitches are going to look a little bit different because you're kind of going from an angle over and then you're going to curve it going down straight. So you kind of want the stitches on the left side, as you can see, is going to be a little bit smaller than the ones on the right. And those are going to be a little bit wider and they're going to shape a little bit more triangular than the ones on um the left. All right, so and then once I straighten up the hair, I want my stitches to go straight across on each end. So once you get a good flow of going straight back, then you want to line your stitches up and just keep going with the flow and go down and finish off in the style. All right, so now I'm on the other side and I've braided down some, and this is when you cross over again. So once I get to the back, I start kind of going towards the triangular part of it to and I braided out some, just a few, and then I dig into the other side of the hair and just start stitching and adding the braid from the first section into the second section, using the hair, and then I just start braiding back like normal. Again, the stitches are going to be bigger on this left side than it is on the right side because of how the braid's direction is going. But once I straighten it out and start going to the back, I do want my stitches to be equally formed on both ends. And as you can see, once I get to the back, I flip my braid over, and I like to tug on the back hair a little bit just to make sure they're not too tight on my client, because I don't want him to be in pain in the back, especially if he has to like put it in a ponytail. I want the braids to be able to move. And as I'm braiding down, I like to make sure I put some gel on the ends so that the hair at the ends aren't too frizzy, because those tend to be frizzy. As you know, hair gets shorter at the end and just different lengths, so it likes to get a little frizzy. So now I'm on the other half of his hair, and I'm just making sure I comb through it to make sure I'm not like reaching into any friction once I get started with the braiding. And now I'm just looking back and forth on each side to make sure that the sizes that is on the first side of his head, which is on the right side, it matches up and aligns proportionally with the braid, with the section that I'm parting out on the other side. So then again, I go in and I coat the hair. Once I feel like I have a part that works, I coat it, and then I go in with the handy dandy precision comb, and then I just clear that up to make a nice straight crisp part. Y'all know I love my parts, and I just definitely feel like some crisp part makes the style. Like that's the most beautiful part of the style. And then secondly, I believe it would be like the stitch braiding. And of course, you want some nice, neat braids as well. So once I have that parted out, I'm gonna, ponytail that out of the way and get started. Again, same like the other section. I coat each side and I just jump into braiding it and getting that first braid out the way. But I'm always looking on the other side to make sure that I've lined up the parts properly. Proportion plays a huge part of making your braids look really, really good, because you definitely don't want them to be off. Like, people can see things, guys. So if I'm looking at braids, and I know it's not only me, of course, I'm looking with a professional eye when I'm looking at people's hair, but also that's what make things beautiful, is just taking the time out to make sure that the braids are proportional, the parts are clean, the braids are neat. And that's where the compliments are going to roll in. That's what people are going to be focused on. And, sometimes you can have hair that might be missing one of those things, whether it be proportion, whether it be um, the straight lines or the straight parts, and the hair still might look good, but it might just be missing one thing. But if it's missing every single aspect of a braid, which is like the proportion, the parts, the stitch, the braids, I doubt the braid is gonna look the best. So make sure you have a good amount of that. And I'm using the Do Grow hair oil to oil his scalp. I've finished the style now, and I'm gonna go in with this hair oil. I've been loving this oil. I've been using it on my kids, and it's just been doing a great job, and it's just easy. I love the nozzle on it, so it's just really easy to use that and just get in all the nooks and crannies of the hair. And today I'm using the Cara Care foam wrap lotion mousse thing, and there's nothing spectacular about this. Sometimes I just grab the first mousse because I feel like they all work, but it's definitely not like my top choice to use, but it definitely still works. So I like to, like, put a generous amount up there and then just spread it all over the head. And this is normally my client's favorite part, because they've just went through, like, the braids and the hassling, all that stuff, and then the cool foam just feels really, really good on their scalp. And so normally they like that. So I didn't show this part, but I did go in and I blow dried the mousse out. And adding heat to this type of mousse really, really helps the hair to like kind of have low frizz. And this is how the style turned out, you guys. It's just a quick video, but let me know in the comments what you guys think about this style. If you learned anything, and just let me know overall how you feel and if you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.